Hey everyone, my name is Troy from Tech Games, etc. And before I give my review of God of War Ascension, let's give a moment of silence to Kratos and this franchise. A moment of silence to declare that this franchise is dead. It is really dead. So let's go ahead and just pay our respects real quick. Just give me a moment of silence. Thank you so much for that silence, because let me tell you, this thing is dead, shawty. This thing is dead. I am so mad with this God of War Ascension. I absolutely knew there was nothing here. But before I get any further, you can go ahead and look at the bottom of the video, as always, and skip to the part where I give my final grade for God of War Ascension. Now, let's just get to the things that I hated the most. Let's get to the cons. Let's get that out of the way, because through the cons you will understand the story, and I will give you some of the overviews that you just need to know. I don't have to go into pretty much detail, because everything I would tell you, you are going to know through my pros and cons. Now let's get to the cons. The storyline was the biggest waste of time ever in any God of War. Now, I probably can't tell you detail for detail of all the things that happened in God of War 1 to 3. But let me tell you, God of War Ascension, the storyline was the biggest waste of time. Let me just give you some of the cons of this. And if you would like, all my cons and my pros are in the description box below. Number 1. The ending with Kratos was terrible. The ending, I know this is a prequel, but how they did it was kind of effed up. Really effed up. I don't know if I should reveal a lot, because you're probably still interested in this title. So I don't want to spoil it for you. But the way that this game, alright, forget it. Forget it. I may add another caption if you want to skip this part and just move on. The ending to this, right? Kratos realizes that he was the murderer of his family. Alright? He was the murderer. He was the murderer of his family, and he realizes this when he killed this guy named Orcos. Now, Orcos is the Furies. Like, there's 3 sisters called the Furies, and they had an oath. Pretty much Kratos has an oath with them and Ares, and the Furies were sent after Kratos because of the oath he has with Ares, right? So towards the end, sorry for spoiling it, towards the end, Kratos has to kill Orcos because Orcos still has what is called the Oath. The Oath was pretty much the oath of promise, of allegiance, basically. That's what I took from the story, okay? That's what I took. And if I get this wrong, just go ahead and correct me in this comment section below, and I'll be happy to put a caption up explaining what things I got wrong. But from the storyline, this is what I got. So he ends up killing Orcos, right? And as he's killing him, Orcos, before Orcos died, Orcos was like, you know, you shouldn't really know the truth. The truth is not always good to know. So he kills him, and he's like, oh my gosh. Then you hear the narrator's voice, when Kratos killed Orcos. Kratos realizes that he was the murderer of his family. Then Kratos sets out to go after Ares, which is the start of part 1. That right there leaves so many questions of, so how come Kratos did not know from the beginning of the game that he was the murderer of his family? How did they shield that from him? Because the deal with Ares was, and along with the Furies, which is like a group of 3 sisters, demonic sisters, was Kratos was going to be given pretty much a fantasy land of him and his family. Pretty much. His family will be returned. Or something like that. Now, as far as the storyline goes, it was a lot of Crisis 2 like. When I say Crisis 2, like, the developers tried their hardest to stretch the story as much as they could with the storyline and gameplay. For example, when you're playing in the beginning, there's a lot of chasing. There was one sister you had to chase all the way to the end of the level. Every time you got close to her, oh, you can't catch me, Kratos. Da 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 da. You can't catch me, Kratos. Through the whole board. Through the whole board. That was one example. Another example, when you fought the other sister, you fought her and the first sister together, which was a nice boss fight, I'm not going to lie. It was a nice boss fight. I ain't going to lie about that. But unfortunately, all your effort was like, come to find out, it was all an illusion. So they escape again. So every time you get close to these sisters, somehow you just lose grasp of them and you still have to chase them, which was a big waste of time. Big waste of time. It was called, like, I call it like too much teasing gameplay, where it's like, you can't catch me, Kratos. You thought you had me. Because throughout the game, you are facing them in boss battles. But sadly, they're not dead yet. And somehow, I don't know how the first sister came back to life. Maybe she has another twin or something. I don't know. But there was a lot of, the storyline they try to stretch it with a lot of prequels within a prequel within a prequel. You have the present day Kratos. Then you have gameplay of what happened to Kratos 3 months ago. Then you have Kratos in the present again playing. Then you have Kratos what happened 2 weeks ago. They tried to stretch this thing as far as they could, struggling. Also, another thing the developers did, very, very noticeable, and this took me out of the experience of this game. The experience of this game. The developers made some bad decisions, okay? They recycled a lot of enemies from previous God of Wars. So you're going to see a lot of Cyclopses, a lot of Medusa-like characters, a lot of Chimeras, a lot of Goatmen, a lot of Hellhounds, Centaurs, which is the half man, half horse, and Harpies, which is like the women with the wings and stuff, half bird, half woman. Now, some are different. They tried their hardest. They tried their hardest to cover it up. You know, they'll probably give them a different color or different type of attack. Like the three-headed hellhounds are back in this game again. And some of y'all might say, well, this is the prequel, blah, blah. No. I'm sorry. You cannot. I repeat, you cannot argue that with me. Oh, this is the prequel, so these are the creatures before. No, 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 no. No, no. I'm sorry. And also, you remember those statues in part 3? The ones that were standing still and it had the hammer? Well, there's these things called Talos, right? These Talos, instead of them being statues, they're just possessed armor. Same animations. Like, they take the characters, give them different colors, or give them different looks with the same animation, the same button sequences, fatalities as the previous ones. Sometimes they'll just give them like different elemental attacks. And why am I saying this is the developers at Santa Monica Studio are some of the most talented developers I have seen when it comes to enemy design, boss design, character design, environmental design. It felt like to me that these developers said, okay, this is the prequel, so we're going to save all our big guns for God of War 4 instead of this prequel. So let's rehash a lot of stuff that was in previous God of Wars, which is not good at all. And there is this one part that is so hard. It's called the Trial of Archimedes. Now, the Trial of Archimedes is pretty much a gauntlet before you get to the top of this Lantern of Talos, I think it's called. And let me tell you, after you experience this thing on hard, you would think that this is one of the most unfairest advantages these developers try to do to make this game seem longer. Because after that, the game is pretty much over. The game is pretty much over. And the trial of Archimedes, you really have to learn how to beat that. I have to do a strategy guide video for this part because you have to use all your items, everything, because they give you no checkpoints. They give you, even though checkpoints were added in boss fights for the first time in God of War that I can remember, especially in God of War Ascension, they did put checkpoints in boss fights finally. But sadly, they gave you no checkpoint, no health, no magic rejuvenation until you beat the last enemy on tier 3. Tier 3, you have three tiers, 1, 2, and 3. I was like, oh wow. Like they actually said in an article in Joystick that they have to release a patch because it's that hard. It's really hard. You remember God of War 1 where you had to protect your family in that illusion whatever thing? You had to protect your family and stay alive, and you had to absorb their energy to keep you alive. It's not as balanced as that until you figure out how to beat it, but I don't think a majority of people will figure it out because it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard. I was frustrated. I almost was like, oh man, this game is a D and E because these developers don't know how to develop. But I did pass it. I'm going to try to have a strategy guide. If I don't, oh well, but damn. Okay, so that was just pretty much it of my top 2 reasons, my top 2 cons. I'm really stretching it here with my number 3. There is an online pass to play the multiplayer. Some of the wishes I had for the campaign is that I wish the enemies' health was displayed. You know, they did add some new features to this game, which I'll get to later. And also the way that Kratos opens the chest for the health and the magic. I wish it was much faster, especially when he does for the red orbs. Like he opens the chest faster for red orbs than he does anything else. And I know I'm really stretching here for cons because my major cons were the first 2. And another thing you need to keep in mind, there are also demos on this game disc. Like demos like Starhawk, Big Planet, what is it? A Little Big Planet Carton, Journey, God of War Origins Collection, Flower, Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, Sound Shapes, Unfinished One, and PlayStation All Stars. They do add some demos on the disc where you can download. I don't know how long it is, but once you start the download process, you can't exit out of it. So be mindful of that. Again, I'm stretching for cons because those are my major cons, or my first 2. Now let's get to some of the things I did like about this game. There are some things. This game did add some new features, items to the game. Checkpoints during boss fights, which is a plus. Except at the trial of Archimedes where they just effed everybody over. They do have checkpoints during boss fights now. A new mini game when killing certain enemies, like the Medusa type characters, like these things called juggernauts, these elephants, where when you're stabbing them, you can actually dodge out of the way, which is pretty good. Like it was like, you know, I liked it. You know, too bad they rehashed a lot of the stuff, you know, to throw out the experience, but there's also a new rage meter. If you're watching the gameplay right now, if you look to the right side, there is a rage meter. Now, the rage meter, when filled all the way, you can get more damage with your normal Blades of Chaos. Blades of Chaos, you can get more damage. Also, you do what is called a rage attack. Now, this game actually has it where instead of certain weapons being possessed with powers, your Blades of Chaos can change elemental powers. It can have, you know, the fire of Ares, the lightning of Zeus, the souls of Hades, the ice of Poseidon. So they really switched that around. And when that rage meter fills, you can unleash a rage attack based off of those elemental powers. I already talked about the elemental powers. That was my next one. And This is my number, still on my number one. Just giving you some more of the features. You can also pick up regular weapons like spears, sword, hammers, or slingshots. Now these don't possess, unlike three, where you had a bow that was possessed, and also there was another weapon possessed by some magic, wasn't it? But remember the bow that shot fire? Well, these don't have powers per se. You can use them as a strong weapon. Like if you block and press circle, he'll throw the hammer to daze some enemies. But they don't have no possessional powers. But you can use a sword regularly or a spear for long range. Kratos can actually dash now. That was something I looked in the old God of War pamphlet. I mean manual. There's no dash, but you can actually dash in this game. Okay, the control scheme changed also. You can no longer grab with circle, but R1. You have to get used to it, but that was a feature they added. They switched it up. Now, multiplayer was added. Now, multiplayer has 4 classes based on your allegiance to the gods. It's pretty much your class: Ares, Zeus, Hades, Poseidon. Based off of those, you would get certain abilities more than others. Like if you had a class of Ares, you followed Ares, your allegiance to Ares, you'll get more strong warrior attacks versus like Poseidon or Hades or Zeus. You can have up to 1 to 8 players depending on the type of game type you select. Maps are locations throughout the God of War universe, like from part 1 all the way up to part 3. You'll recognize some of the maps, and some maps include traps, monsters, mounted weapons, portals, and etc. Some game modes include TDM, free for all, which is deathmatch, capture the flag, a sort of conquest mode, and I say a sort of conquest mode because it's not the actual name of it. I'm taking it from a battlefield, but you just have to control your shrine and your points and things like that and protect them. And there's a two to one player survival mode. You can play solo or with a friend, where you go around sections of the map and try to survive the attack of waves of enemies. And as you beat one section, you go on to the next section. You also can select the armor, weapons, perks, and magic. Unfortunately, you can't select a warrior type. Like you get a default warrior. As you can see, you can change the skin color, but that's all you can really change. Also, my number 3, the game still is hard, which I still love about this game. God of War has always been a challenge. You put this on hard, you can put it on hard, and then when you play hard and beat it, you can unlock Titan. And there are also demos on the disc, like I said before. And the enemies are affected by elemental attacks. Now, with all that said and done, what is my final grade for God of War Ascension? I give it a C minus. I give it a C minus. Even though I had a lot of issues with the storyline being the biggest waste of time, and the ending, and how they had a lot of too much teasing gameplay with the Furies, and how the developers got lazy with developing new monsters and creatures for you to fight. They recycled a lot of the monsters, and some of the development decisions they did with the trial of Archimedes. This game did add some features. It added a multiplayer, which was, multiplayer is kind of forgettable. You either like it or you don't. I didn't like it as much. I mean, I can see myself playing it, but not as much as I would like a Tomb Raider Online or BF3 or Modern Warfare 3, something like that. And I believe that this series, in order for God of War to survive this series, a series of God of War, they need a reboot. They seriously need a reboot. I'm on record as saying this. Like a reboot like Tomb Raider. Now, Tomb Raider 2013 was a prequel, an origin story, but it did not play like any other Tomb Raiders before. From what I look at it as, it's not as that. And God of War needs a reboot. They needed still have Kratos, but probably in a different time. Probably still keep mythology, but don't have no association with gods. Like he makes the deal with a witch or uh or a wizard or something and gets the blades of chaos or something and just have a more fresh storyline. I just I do not look forward I do not look forward to God of War 4. And if I did not have a YouTube channel to review games, I wouldn't have bought this game. Even though I gave it a C minus, I still wouldn't have bought this game. This game doesn't offer enough for me to be like it's worth 60 bucks. And so, off record, let me say something real quick. So, which one is better? Devil May Cry, the reboot, or God of War Ascension? I still think Devil May Cry is better. The only reason I believe Devil May Cry didn't succeed is they didn't keep the original appearance like the old Dante. Because I'm telling you right now, God of War Ascension versus Devil May Cry. I know y'all say, this is a prequel, you can't compare. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Devil May Cry to me is still numero uno compared to God of War Ascension. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. So let me know, community, did I get the storyline wrong? What you think about God of War Ascension? Have you played it? Have you beat it? Have you played it on hard? Experienced the trials of Archimedes? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you like what you saw today, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps out a lot. And there go all my contact information. See you later. Thanks a lot.